The alert came through my phone before it reached the TV. A harsh, cracked tone tore through the quiet kitchen, static dragging like teeth across metal. I froze with the knife in my hand, half-cut carrots sitting slick on the counter. The screen blinked black, then white, then that buzzing amber warning frame I've seen for tornadoes and amber alerts. My thumb hovered over the mute button and stopped. "Emergency alert," the voice said. No name, no emotion. Just this: do not taste the black dust. I laughed once, breath short, the sound thin and wrong in my own ears. "What the hell?" The voice repeated it slower. "Do not taste the black dust." Outside the window, the world didn't look dangerous. The sky was pale, too pale, as if it had been scoured clean with bleach. But the wind had changed. It pushed against the open window like fingers trying to pry it closed. I stepped outside barefoot. The grass was pinched with powder, thin and black, the way dust settles in forgotten corners, but too even, too deliberate. It clung to the blades like soot pressed into skin. My fingers brushed a tuft of clover. Black grit slid down, sticky against my sweat. I licked one finger. Instinct. Reflex. Metallic. Bitter. A taste like old pennies ground with rust. I spat before it could settle. The air smelled wrong. Not rotten, not mold, but dry. Like ash from a fire long dead. It caught at my throat, rasping with every breath. I coughed hard, my chest clamping like iron hoops tightening on a barrel. "Hey!" My neighbor Tom was already out the door, his lawn mower idling uselessly behind him. "You taste that crap?" He barked it like a joke, but his eyes didn't match. They were wide, rimmed red, like he hadn't slept, or hadn't breathed clean air in hours. "Not yet," I croaked. He grinned too wide, teeth flashing in the washed-out light. "Good. They say don't taste it. Guess that means some dumbass already did." The wind snatched a sheet of newspaper from the porch. It skittered like a living thing, corners curling and snapping against the walkway. The black grit on it didn't dust off. It soaked in, clinging like wet charcoal pressed into fabric. Inside, the TV repeated the warning on a loop. The ticker at the bottom screamed updates, but none of it made sense. Every line scrolled too fast, like the machine couldn't keep up. A second voice, quieter, whispered through the static between alerts. "Do not taste it. Not official. Not human." I shut the door, but the grit was already in the air, pushed through cracks like breath. My forearms, when I rubbed them, felt slick. Black residue stuck to the sweat, clumping like dark sandpaper. I washed them twice, scrubbing until the skin burned red, but the grit came back within minutes. Dinner sat untouched. The carrots smelled faintly metallic when I cut them again. I rinsed them under the tap until the water ran black, swirling like ink. I could hear the wind sharpening outside, dragging leaves along the pavement. Every breath I took scraped dry and thin, like sipping air through a cracked straw. I closed the vents, sealed the windows with towels, checked the pantry shelves twice. Flour dusted the corners like snow, brown sugar clumped with black grit like wet clay. I threw it out. My stomach twisted. I hadn't eaten since noon, but I wasn't hungry, at least not yet. It sat there, taut, knotted, as if it knew better than me. My tongue swelled with saliva when I glanced at the fridge, but the taste in my mouth was bitter, metallic, wrong. I poured water into a glass. Even that, when I touched it, left a film on my fingers, a slick, powdery feel. I hesitated, cupping the glass, staring as if it might turn black before I drank. I wiped it with a clean cloth until the surface squeaked, then drank fast. The cold water scraped like glass shards down my throat. Tom pounded on the door just before dusk. His eyes were bloodshot, lids half lowered like fever. "You still in there?" he rasped. His clothes clung damp to his shoulders, and the black grit on his collar spread like frostbite. His lips were chapped raw, split at the edges. "I'm good," I said, though my voice sounded thin, chopped like a bad speaker. I washed it off. He laughed, a short, choking bark. "Good. Good. Just don't." His hand twitched toward his mouth but stopped. His gaze flicked over me, scanning like he expected something wrong. "Don't taste it," he hissed. "That's what they're saying." "Who's they?" He swallowed, lips working. "The station. The alert. Hell, I don't know. Doesn't matter. Just don't taste it." His eyes darted past me to the yard, to the wind, to something none of us could see. "They said that twice already. 3 times. Maybe more. I saw kids out by the creek, licking their hands. I swear. Mothers screaming. Nobody's calling the cops. Nobody wants it on record." His shoulders jerked. He rubbed his forearms like trying to scrub away the feeling of grit embedded in his pores. I grabbed his arm. His skin was damp and cold, slick as raw meat. He jerked away like I'd touched him with fire. "Tom." He shook his head. "Listen, man. Stay inside. Don't taste it. Don't even lick your lips. They say," he shuddered, "they say it's already in the air. You can't wash it off once it's in your mouth." He stumbled down the porch steps, then spun around once more, eyes crazed. "Lock the doors." The wind slammed the door behind him like a fist. I stood in the silence after, heart hammering like fists punching from the inside. My fingers twitched, tapping against the counter like they didn't belong to me. I licked them. The bitterness hit instantly, metal, ash, rot. I gagged, spitting it into the sink. My stomach clenched so hard I doubled over, gasping ugly, breath splintering. The alert repeated once more from the TV. "Do not taste the black dust." I sat on the floor, knees drawn up, palms slick with sweat that slid like oil down my ribs. Outside, the wind carried dry whispers, the leaves rasping against each other like bones under sand. I pressed my back to the door, eyes wide, as if staring long enough might keep the grit away. But the powder settled deeper, sliding through cracks, clinging to my skin, waiting. I didn't sleep that night. Every breath scraped. Every taste on my tongue turned bitter. Every movement reminded me, the dust was already here, and I was already infected with its fear. The next morning the dust was everywhere. Not like frost, not like pollen. It didn't drift and settle gently. It coated surfaces thick and even, as if poured from above by something that knew exactly where to land. My porch steps were dull black. The swing ropes sagged under powder. The air sat heavy, grainy, as if each breath carried sandpaper. I ran my hand down the banister. My fingertips came away streaked black. I sniffed. Bitter. Metallic, sharp as chewing rust. The grass outside lay flattened in streaks, like something had crawled through it at night. Leaves clung together, edges clotted with grit. I touched one and rubbed it between finger and thumb. Black dust slid like paste. It stuck, tugging at the skin with invisible hooks. I washed my hands in a bucket until the water turned gray, swirling like paint. Even then, the grit returned within minutes, crawling back from creases in my nails, from pores I'd scrubbed raw. The TV hissed again that afternoon, barely audible through static. The message scrolled too fast to read, but I caught fragments. Livestock contamination, water unsafe. The same voice came through broken, rasping like breath caught in metal tubing. "Do not taste the black dust." I flipped the volume up. The words repeated, but slower, broken into syllables as if each one needed to be chewed before the next could be forced out. The screen cut before completing another warning. Tom banged on the door just before noon. His shirt clung wet against his chest. His eyes were bloodshot, lid edges scabbed with cracked skin. Dust darkened the sweat at his temples and traced lines down his neck. "Did you see him?" His voice was a whisper that rattled in his throat. "See what?" His gaze darted past me. He leaned in so close I caught the sour stink of fear baked with sweat. "Them. Kids. Out by the creek. Licking their hands." My stomach clenched. "They're saying not to taste it." His eyes snapped back to mine. "You heard, right?" "I heard." He pressed his lips together, but the muscle twitched. One of them coughed. Face black around the mouth. Parents screaming. Nobody called. Nobody came. He sucked air through cracked teeth, eyes wild. "Don't let it touch you. Don't let it get inside." Before I could ask more, he turned, leaving muddy footprints like dark blotches on the porch. His shoulders shook once before he disappeared down the street. I stood frozen, the bucket of cloudy water half spilled at my feet. The grit on my skin seemed to thicken, crawling inward like ants threading down the inside of my wrist. By late afternoon, I couldn't ignore it. The yard beyond the fence was smeared black. The vegetable patch I'd weeded last week wore dust as if it had grown there. The creek glimmered dull gray, its surface crawling with floating soot. Frogs bobbed sluggishly in the water, coated with paste that clung to their legs. I grabbed a stick and poked at one of the frogs. It twitched weakly, ribs visible through darkened skin. Its throat pulsed once, twice, then froze. The wind carried whispers. Not voices I could catch, but a dry sibilance, like fingers raking sand over glass. It tickled the back of my neck until I whipped around. Nothing but air thick with grit and the distant rustle of weeds. I retreated inside and sealed every crack I could find. I pushed towels under doors, taped windows with newspaper. But even the newspaper didn't block it. Dust slid beneath, curling into corners, staining edges like dried blood. The pantry shelves looked untouched, but when I opened the door, every jar had a rim of black powder clinging to its lid. Flour, sugar, oats, all dusted thick, like cobwebs woven by something patient. I wiped one jar clean and sniffed it. Bitter metal. I recoiled. The tap water, when poured into a glass, streamed gray, thick like ash stirred into cream. I rinsed the glass until it squeaked, then drank fast, jaw tight, eyes watering. The more I scrubbed, the more it returned. I washed my hands until the skin burned, cracked, but the dust crept back like breath through fabric. By evening, the message loops worsened. The scrolling text stuttered, repeating phrases: livestock, water, contamination. Do not taste, do not taste, do not taste. Each loop began before the last had ended. The voice frayed into wheezing gasps that didn't form words, like someone choking on their own warning. I couldn't look away. The TV's flicker through shadows that crawled along the walls like tiny claws. I started keeping notes. On the inside of a cereal box, I scratched with a pen. Do not taste. Do not taste. Do not taste. Each time I touched the pen to the box, my fingers trembled. I pressed harder, gouging the cardboard until flakes fell, dust rising with them. That night, I dreamt of licking the dust. In the dream, the yard stretched into a black sea. The powder rippled like water under the wind's invisible hand. It called to me, thick and slow, beckoning with waves that broke at my feet and crawled up my legs. Each grain pulsed like flesh. I woke gasping, heart hammering like fists against my ribs. My lips tasted metal. I sat on the bed until dawn, staring at my own hands. The skin between my knuckles had turned gray. My fingernails, once pale, now sported dark crescents as if dirt had burrowed beneath them. I scrubbed until the skin tore. The static returned at sunrise, softer now but relentless. The final warning repeated like a mantra: do not taste the black dust. The words crawled into my dreams even as I sat awake. I could already feel it in my mouth. By afternoon, the warnings felt like echoes bouncing off walls that didn't care. The message scrolled across the screen in jerks: do not taste the black dust. Then again, each loop faster than the last, the words collapsing into static that rasped like wire scraped on bone. I stopped watching after the fifth repeat. The sound crawled into my skull, a high whine that wouldn't let me think. The air inside the house thickened until breathing felt like dragging grit through wet cloth. I wrapped a scarf around my face, but the dust found its way under, crawling along the edge of my jaw, into the corner of my mouth. I could taste it, bitter, metallic, crawling like rust between teeth. I spat into the sink until my lips burned. Then the knocking came. Not at the door. At the window. I froze, muscles locked like a rod shoved up my spine. My chest slammed against my ribs as if trying to escape. A pale face pressed against the glass. Lips cracked, rimmed black. The eyes were wet and wide, a film like fever glazing over them. I didn't know him. He mouthed something, but his lips barely moved. Only his eyes screamed. I backed away. The window frame groaned. The knocking came again, tap, 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 like fingernails dragging across wood. I shut the blinds and sat on the floor, breath rattling in my throat. My hands twitched at my sides, fingers jerking like bugs under the skin. My mouth watered without hunger, saliva pooling thick as glue. I rubbed my arms until they burned raw. The dust clung anyway, stubborn as ash to damp skin. Later, when the knocking stopped, I crawled to the window and lifted a corner of the blind. The yard stretched empty, gray as bone dust. No footprints, no movement, only wind dragging leaves like dead things across the ground. I told myself it was nothing. Then came the news from the creek. Tom's wife, Ellen, called from a neighbor's phone, her voice ragged and flat. Kids licking hands' mouths, not breathing. She didn't finish. The line cut. I sat staring at the phone long after the dial tone went silent. My fingers hovered over the receiver like they wanted to touch it, but knew better. By dusk, word had spread. The few neighbors I dared check on kept their distance, eyes darting behind me as if the dust could leap off my skin. A mother hissed through clenched teeth when I offered help. Stay away. Don't bring it near. I locked the door. I watched the yard through cracks in the blinds until the dark pooled too thick to see anything but moving shadows. Every tree trunk wore a coat of powder thick as wet soot. The air tasted of metal and rot. That's when the first group came. They didn't knock. They stood on the other side of the fence, a knot of shapes hunched together. Their clothes clung with dust, stiff and gray like plaster. I could hear their breathing, ragged, dry, like someone sucking air through sandpaper. One of them crawled forward on his hands. His palms were caked black, cracked open like soil in drought. He dragged his knuckles toward a half-buried bag of dog food I'd tossed near the fence days ago. The grains of kibble, once brown and meaty, were now coated thick with dust, fused into a paste that oozed like wet clay. His head snapped up when he saw me watching. His mouth hung open. Black flakes clung to his lips like scales. His eyes darted wildly before locking onto mine. His jaw twitched, jerking the way muscles do when they're trying to obey commands that won't reach the brain. He reached for the food. I opened my mouth to shout, to throw something, but my limbs froze. My heart hammered against my chest like fists at a door. Every nerve screamed to move, but my legs ignored the order. The group murmured around him, fragments of words scraped out like nails on glass. I caught nothing but breathy rasping, and the hiss of dust-laden air sucked into dry lungs. The crawling boy tore at the kibble with his teeth. I turned away before I could see more. The next morning, the news channels carried footage, grainy and looped too fast to follow. The captions screamed in block letters. Child eats contaminated food. Throat splits, condition unknown. Do not taste the black dust. I sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes bloodshot, every surface around me flecked with soot despite my cleaning. I scrubbed the kitchen until the tiles rasped under my fingers, but dust seeped from corners like water through cracks. The taste lingered on my tongue. Bitter, metallic, dead. I kept reaching for water, rinsing my mouth until my lips peeled raw, but it clung like filth embedded deeper than skin. At night, I dreamt of mouths sprouting black growths, tentacles curling from lips like roots pushing through rotten wood. Children crouched in circles, faces slack, chewing without sound as dust oozed from their chins like melted wax. I woke choking, air rasping rough as sandpaper. My chest bound itself tight, like iron hoops around a barrel. I clawed at the blankets, desperate to breathe clean air. I whispered the rule over and over. Do not taste the black dust. Do not taste the black dust. Do not. I traced it in the dust with my finger on the table, letters shaky, half-formed, before I broke apart into tears that tasted like metal. By dawn, I barely trusted my own hands. Every touch left a smear. Every breath scraped my throat raw. The television looped the warning until the words lost meaning. I sat staring at it, eyes wide, lids burning, afraid to blink lest I miss the next instruction. Outside, the wind dragged grit across the yard like fingers marking lines toward something hungry. And I sat, frozen, wondering how long before I forgot the rule myself. The house smelled wrong. Not stale. Not rotten. It was dry, sharp, metallic, like biting the inside of a tin can until the edges frayed. Even the wood smelled of iron. Every surface wore it. The kitchen counters were streaked gray like ash from a fire no one cleaned. The backs of chairs, the rim of the sink, even the edge of the bathtub wore a film that clung stubborn as dried blood. I wiped one corner with a damp cloth. It darkened instantly, smearing across the surface like paint dragged with a brush. I washed until my hands split. The skin between my knuckles tore open, thin red lines mapped like roots, but no matter how often I scrubbed, black dust slid back in from the pores. My nails turned dull, edges jagged like cracked stone. I bit one absent-mindedly while staring at the sink, tasting metal on my tongue. I spat until my lips burned raw. Food containers sat on the shelves like tombstones, sealed but useless. Flour hardened with soot. Pasta stuck together into ropes that flaked when touched. Even sealed canned goods wept powder through seams I couldn't see. I kept the doors shut tight. Towels packed every crack. Still, each time I exhaled, I could feel grit sliding in through my nostrils like fine needles grazing skin. Breathing scraped my throat until I gagged. The TV warned, but the words came distorted. Do not taste. Then silence. Then static. I shut it off. The silence hit harder than the static. Without its repetition, I heard the dust itself. It shifted in corners when the lights were off. It whispered against window panes. It crawled through vents with dry sighs. I lay in bed with my eyes open, listening to it scrape against the walls like fingernails chasing something just beyond reach. The first time I gave in, I barely remembered it. It was late. My stomach clawed like a trapped animal. The cupboards were empty except for a half bag of rice fused together in gray clumps. I pried them apart with a spoon until grains slid free like wet sand. My fingers trembled as I lifted them toward my mouth. The smell hit first, bitter and sour, with a trace of rust and something else wrong. It wasn't food. It was metal ground into dust. But hunger silenced reason. I stuffed a handful in. The texture shocked me. It felt dry, chalky, like biting into the plaster of a wall. My tongue went numb instantly. I coughed, gagging as the dust scratched deep into my throat. I ran to the sink, retching until nothing but bitter water came. My lips were slick with paste that wouldn't wash away. I scrubbed until my skin peeled. That night, I traced the rule in every corner. Do not taste the black dust. I scratched it with a pen on the inside of the cupboard door, on the backs of plates, along the edge of the sink. My handwriting shook, letters crooked and dark, as if the act of writing could bind the warning to the house itself. But each time I washed my hands, the grit returned like breath leaking from the cracks. I started covering everything, bowls, counters, shelves, with plastic wrap and aluminum foil, layering seal after seal as if I could smother the dust. It wriggled back, finding gaps like a parasite hungry for skin. Days or nights, I lost track of time. The light grew dim no matter how many lamps I turned on. My eyes burned constantly. The skin along my jawline itched until I clawed at it, flaking skin streaked gray across the pillowcase. I stopped eating altogether. Water turned murky after sitting too long in a jar. I poured it out and scrubbed the glass until it squeaked. Even then, when I lifted it, the rim left a smear that tasted bitter, sharp, like biting into a coin. My stomach cramped until I doubled over. Every breath clawed at my lungs, rasping like someone pulling sand through a tube. My ribs felt hollow. My muscles twitched as if trying to escape my skin. I curled tighter, wrapping myself in blankets like armor, but the dust sifted through the weave, tickling at my wrists and ankles. I scratched until my skin bled. My dreams worsened. I woke seeing black tendrils curling from the sink faucet like roots. The walls pulsed with fine cracks, oozing dust instead of plaster. Children crouched in the corner, their mouths slack, tongues coated in soot as they chewed silently. Once, in a half-waking stupor, I reached for a bowl of cereal and brought it to my lips before I remembered. The flakes crumbled in my hand like dry sand. I stared at them until tears blurred my vision. I dropped the bowl and sobbed until my chest hurt. I whispered the rule to myself in the dark, lips barely moving. Do not taste it. Do not taste it. But the craving lived in me like a second pulse, sharp and nagging, whispering from my gut between breaths. I scratched it with my nails, bleeding into the dust. When the urge came strongest, I buried my face in the pillow and bit until the fabric tore, stuffing it into my mouth to choke the taste rising from my tongue. My throat burned raw from swallowing spit. My jaw ached from clenching it shut. The TV remained off. The clock, when I checked it, flickered blank. There was no morning anymore, only a slow crawl of gray light through the blinds that never fully broke into day. I began counting breaths to stay sane. One inhale, rasping like dry leaves. One exhale, catching like grit in my throat. One inhale. By the time the count reached 20, I'd forgotten the rule. The dust didn't wait anymore. It pushed. It seeped through the smallest cracks, slick as wet ash pressed into splinters of wood. The gaps around the window where the frame met the wall wore black crescents, curling inward like open wounds. I stuffed towels into them, but when I touched the edges, the grit clung like dead skin. The kitchen smelled sharper than ever, metal, rot, and something sweet under it, like flesh gone bad. I gagged, pressing a rag to my nose, but it only scratched deeper. My stomach clawed me without pause. It twisted into knots that locked my spine. The cramps dragged me to my knees. I crawled to the counter, hands shaking, heart slamming so hard I could hear it pounding inside my ears. The rice clumps, once a mistake, were gone. The shelves looked cleaner only because I had eaten them. I opened every container, half expecting something left, but the plastic wrap sagged over empty jars like skin stretched over bone. The rule pulsed in my mind: do not taste the black dust. I whispered it as I scraped paste from the counters with a spoon. I scribbled it on every surface, appliance, wall, table. The ink ran where my fingers smeared it, letters broken and crawling like ants. I traced over them again until the shapes hardened. Do not taste. Black dust. Don't. The words were a prayer and a curse. My hands twitched when I wasn't watching. I clawed at my lips, grinding the skin until it bled. I licked my own wrist once, fast and desperate, then froze, eyes wide as if I'd touched poison. The TV remained dead. The power lines hummed faintly in the walls, like breath choking. Outside, the yard disappeared beneath a moving sheet of gray. The dust didn't settle. It crawled. It slid over leaves, fences, even the cracks in the sidewalk, as if searching for any gap. The urge grew louder at night. It whispered from corners. It hissed beneath the door. It pulsed in the veins of my fingers. I would lie awake, eyes wide, mouth parted, tasting air thick with grit until the urge rose like fire behind my eyes. I scratched at it with my nails until they split. Sometimes, half asleep, I dreamed of crawling hands reaching from the floor, dragging me by the ankles toward a mound of powder that pulsed and breathed. I would wake clawing at blankets, heart hammering, mouth wet with spit thick as glue. I told myself the rule again. Do not taste it. But the voice inside me, a thin rasp that coiled around every thought, mocked me. Just one lick. Just once. It tickled the back of my throat like a dry feather. It pulsed with every breath. I locked the pantry door twice and bolted it with a chair, but dust pressed through anyway, curling under the seam like a tide reaching for shore. I covered every container with plastic wrap, sealed jars with tape, packed towels into cracks like clay sealing a wound. But it oozed back, patient and unstoppable. Days crawled by. I no longer trusted clocks. The light outside barely shifted, thick and gray as old bone. My lips chapped until they cracked. Every time I swallowed, I felt grit scratch along the edges of my throat, sliding in like splinters. I kept count of breaths until I lost track. One inhale rasping like paper. One exhale catching like dust choking a pipe. One inhale. Sometimes the dust formed shapes on the glass, smears that resembled fingers reaching in. I would stare until my eyes watered, willing them away. The hunger didn't rest. It stretched and knotted, sharp enough to tear muscle from bone. My stomach ached with hooks pulling inward. My legs trembled when I stood. I began talking to it. Not now, I hissed through cracked lips. Later. Not now. I would press my palms against the counter until the skin went numb and hold my breath until the rasp became unbearable, hoping the urge would pass. But it never did. When I crawled to the back room, I found the old pantry calendar lying flat against the shelf. Its pages had warped from moisture and dust, edges curling like burnt leaves. I picked it up with shaking fingers. The dates had long passed. I traced the numbers with my thumb until they smudged. A loose page hung by one corner. I tore it free and scribbled across the back. The last rule. Do not taste the black dust. The letters wavered, thin lines like cracks spreading across ice. I folded it and tucked it inside my shirt against my chest. The fabric stuck to my skin, damp with sweat and dust. I sat against the wall and closed my eyes. The urge didn't stop. It crawled through bone and muscle, drumming at my temples. It pulsed in time with my heart. My fingers twitched at my thighs. My jaw clenched without command. The whisper grew louder. Just one taste. I pressed my teeth into my lip until it bled again. Do not taste the black dust. I repeated it until the words blurred. My tongue pressed against the roof of my mouth, tasting bitter grit, tasting metal, tasting something that didn't belong. I clawed at the air as if I could tear it away. The last rule wasn't written anywhere except inside my head, and that's where it crawled the most. The calendar page stuck to my chest like a second skin. The edges curled inward, damp with sweat, dust, and fear. I traced the words once more with my fingertips until the ink smeared against my skin. The last rule. Do not taste the black dust. The letters pulsed. Or maybe it was my skin twitching. My jaw clenched without command. My fingers itched like they belonged to someone else. I lay on the floor with the calendar pressed against my heart, eyes staring up at the ceiling. The fan hung motionless. The air barely moved. Even the dust seemed to crouch, waiting. The hunger roared like a beast trapped under ribs. It gnawed at the lining of my stomach with hooks, curling tighter with every breath. My muscles trembled until my limbs quivered in place like wire under static. I sat up. The floor beneath me was slick, not wet, but coated with a fine gray film that shifted when I breathed. My mouth watered without warning. I shut my eyes. I whispered the rule into my throat until the words rasped like dry leaves. Do not taste it. Do not taste it. Do not. The voice in my mind answered. Just once. It crawled along the inside of my cheek like cold ash. It teased the edges of my tongue until I clenched my teeth so hard my jaw ached. I covered my mouth with my hand, but the whisper slid between my fingers. Just once. Just one lick. Relief. Sweet relief. The air thickened. I could almost see it. The dust curling like smoke toward me, spiraling from corners, creeping from cracks like fingers. I stumbled to the kitchen. The shelves sat hollow. Every jar empty, every bag gnawed through. Even the crumbs stuck in the corners of bowls seemed drawn inward, coated, indistinguishable from dust. The sink rim wore a smear of paste that clung like dried blood. My eyes locked on it. I froze. The paste pulsed. My hands shook as if something inside them wanted to claw its way out. I backed away. My chest slammed with each breath like fists battering the cage of my ribs. The rule screamed louder. Do not taste it. I covered the rim with a cloth. It resisted, curling over the edge like a tongue trying to lick around it. I slammed the cloth tighter, wrapping it in tape until it vanished under layers of plastic and foil. The paste still oozed through, seeping between layers like a dark vein finding blood. The urge stretched across my skin like static. It reached for me. I tore at my nails, flaked skin curling into gray dust, scratching until my fingers bled. Just once. I clawed at my lips until they split open, wet and raw. I tasted blood. The copper tang hit my tongue like a spark. I gagged, but the taste lingered. I dropped to my knees and covered my face with both hands, shaking as if trying to rip the dust out of my bones. My heart thudded against my ribs, faster, harder, until it rattled like stones in a tin can. The calendar page inside my shirt stuck to my skin, damp and trembling. I tore it free with shaking fingers and pressed it against my forehead. The last rule. The ink smeared, the paper softened, but the words still burned against my skin. I whispered the rule until the edges of my mind frayed. Outside, the wind clawed at the windows like dry nails. Dust hissed in the corners. It moved with purpose now, like something searching. I crawled to the pantry. The door, once sealed with towels and tape, now wore black crescents where the dust had gnawed through. It curled inward like a wound reopening. My hand hovered over the knob. I could feel the grit sliding along the edge like fingers ready to pry it open. I whispered again, "Do not taste the black dust." The voice inside me laughed. Just once. My fingers twitched, curling toward the seam. I pressed the calendar page to the knob with both hands. The dust recoiled for a breath, then surged again, thicker. I slammed my forehead against the door. Pain exploded behind my eyes. I pressed harder. "Do not taste it. Do not taste it. Do not." The air trembled. My vision blurred. The paste along the edges of the knob bulged, pulsing like muscle under skin. I couldn't breathe. My chest bound tight as iron bands. My throat rasped until it felt torn raw. I gagged again while rising. The calendar page stuck harder against the knob. The paper trembled like a trapped insect. I clenched my eyes shut. Just once. My fingers twitched again. I screamed inside my skull. "Do not taste the black dust." My nails raked the calendar, tearing its fibers like dead leaves. The paste withdrew barely. My breath tore through me like sand dragged through wire. I slammed my fist against the floor until my knuckles split open. Blood welled, sticky and dark. It spread across the dust like oil and water. For a moment the urge stilled. I sat back against the door, shivering. My chest heaved. My jaw ached from clenching. The dust still curled in the cracks, waiting. The rule still whispered in the corners of my mind. I hugged the torn calendar against my chest, listening to the dust breathe like a predator lying in wait. The last rule wasn't safe. It was all I had, and it was fraying. The calendar page is gone. I don't remember when it tore away. One minute it clung to my chest, damp and desperate. The next, it fluttered to the floor like a dead leaf and dissolved beneath my palm. I stare at the blank spot on my skin where it once pressed hard enough to mark me. My heart hammers against bone like a fist trying to claw out. The air tastes bitter. My mouth floods with saliva thick as glue. I clench my jaw until it aches, but the craving pulses louder. I crawl to the kitchen. The counter's edge is slick, paste glistening like wet soot. I press my finger against it. It clings, soft and alive, crawling toward the crease between finger and nail like something searching for warmth. I snatch it back. My hand trembles. I slam the fridge shut. The noise explodes in the silence like a gunshot. Dust drifts from its edges in slow curls, twisting through the stale air like gray smoke. The rule screams inside me. Do not taste the black dust. But the whisper answers. Just once. Just one lick. Relief. Sweet relief. I stare at the fridge's handle. Its curve bulges with paste. It throbs, slow and deliberate. My mouth waters again. I spit onto the floor. The spit beads, dark and tacky, spreading like oil and sand. I recoil, but the urge remains. I slam a towel over the handle, pressing it tight against the cold plastic. The paste bulges beneath it, reaching. It slides along the fabric, seeking cracks. I press harder until my knuckles whiten. For a breath, it retreats. Then it pulses again. I stagger back, hand on my chest, fingers digging into skin until they leave crescent marks. My ribs ache. The whisper curls again. Just once. I sink to the floor. My eyes drift toward the sink. The rim wears a thick crust of paste, shiny and dark. My eyes lock onto it. My body trembles. My stomach knots so hard I gag. My fingers twitch toward it, No, no, do not taste the black dust. I cover my mouth with both hands. My nails dig into flesh. I bite the skin between my fingers until it splits open. The copper tang floods my mouth. I gasp, choking on my own spit. I slap the sink's edge as if it could retreat. The paste ripples, reaching toward me like a tongue curling outward. I crawl back, pressing my palms flat against the floor, willing the dust to shrink. It hums, not sound, but pressure. The air thickens around it, curling in small spirals at the edges of vision. The paste surface glimmers like wet muscle, pulsing with patient hunger. I gag again, eyes watering. My throat rasping, raw from the effort to swallow it down. I whisper the rule. Do not taste the black dust. The whisper mocks me. Just once. I rock back on my heels, panting. My skin twitches from scalp to ankle. My jaw clenches hard enough to hurt. My teeth grind against each other, dry and sharp. My eyes wander. On the counter, a cracked plate sits half covered in dust paste. Its edge pulses faintly like muscle shifting beneath the surface. The urge drags me toward it. I grab a rag and press it over the plate's rim, smearing paste into the fabric like wet clay. The paste bulges, tries to escape through the weave. It leaves streaks on the cloth, dark veins pushing toward warmth. I slam the rag into place. For a breath, it lies still. Then it pulses harder, as if trying to breathe through cloth. I freeze. The urge claws at me from inside, scratching at ribs, flaring in the gut. My stomach churns with hooks. My mouth floods with saliva. My throat rasping louder. I close my eyes and rock back and forth. Do not taste it. Do not taste it. Do not. Just once. The voice slithers along the inside of my cheek like cold ash. It presses at the edges of thought until I can barely remember why I resist. I claw at my lips. They split open again. Blood beads at the edge, sticky and dark. I taste it. Copper floods my mouth. I gag, retching until bile burns my throat. I slam my fist against the counter until pain explodes up my arm. I curl around myself, knees to chest, shivering. The urge hums beneath everything, steady as a second heartbeat. I press the last piece of calendar against the counter edge, where the paste pulses strongest. The paper is soft and soggy. I smooth it down, flattening it as if it could block the hunger. The paste bulges beneath it like muscle under skin, trying to pry the page loose. My breath shudders. I close my eyes. Do not taste the black dust. The words barely form before the whisper coils around them. Just once. Just once. I grit my teeth. The paste pulses harder. I slap my hand against the counter, leaving a smear of skin and blood where my fingers met its slick edge. For a moment, it stills. I press my forehead to the counter. The cold plastic numbs my skin. The paste ripples inches from my lips, glossy and hungry. I breathe shallow, barely daring to inhale. I whisper again, frantic. Do not taste it. Do not taste it. The whisper laughs. Just once. I curl tighter, rocking, shivering like prey trapped under claws. The paste pulses harder. I close my eyes. My breath shudders. The hunger waits. I don't know how long I sat there, forehead pressed against the counter's cold edge, breathing in shallow, rasping gasps. The paste beneath the towel pulsed like a trapped muscle, slow and patient, waiting for me to stop fighting. My mouth flooded with saliva until it dripped down my chin. My lips, split open from clawing, twitched at the edge, tasting themselves. The towel sagged against the fridge handle, dark veins pushing through the weave, curling toward warmth. I slammed my hand against it again, leaving streaks of blood along the fabric. The paste paused as if startled before it bulged harder. Just once. The whisper crawled across my tongue, curling like dry ash. I jerked back, but it reached again. I pressed my knuckles against the counter, trembling. My muscles spasmed from inside, jerking against my will. My knees buckled. The air thickened until each breath rasped against grit, like inhaling sand through bone. I clutched the last piece of calendar in my fist. Its edges had dissolved into pulp. The words, the last rule / do not taste the black dust, were smeared into wet stains like wounds. I shoved the pulp against the paste bulging through the towel. My fingers shook so hard the paper flaked apart. It didn't stop. The paste forced itself through the seam, pressing against my skin through fabric, veins racing toward the warmth of my wrist. I screamed inside my mind. Do not taste the black dust. The words cracked like lightning. My breath seized. My jaw clenched hard enough to splinter bone. For a moment, the paste seemed to retreat, flattening beneath the towel. I sagged against the counter, eyes wide, heart slamming like fists battering a locked door. Then the hunger surged harder. It pressed into the fabric like fingers tearing through flesh. Just once, the voice whispered again. I screamed it back at myself. Do not taste it. My vision narrowed. The edges of the room dissolved into gray haze. Dust curled along the seams of the walls like pale tendrils. The paste bulged again, quivering like a living thing desperate to escape. My fingers twitched toward it. I clawed at my lips, tearing skin from bone until blood welled at the corners. The copper tang filled my mouth. I swallowed. My throat rasped raw. Pain shot through my neck like fire. The paste pulsed faster. I yanked the towel from the handle. It came with it, thick, wet paste smeared across the fabric's fibers, dark veins racing toward warmth. I gagged. The air smelled metallic, bitter, thick with rot. I staggered back, dropping the towel. The paste spread slowly across the handle, bulging like muscle, quivering with patient hunger. I pressed my palms against my temples until my head throbbed. I could feel the dust in my blood. My stomach clawed like trapped hooks, dragging muscle from bone. My legs trembled until they gave out. I sank to the floor, curling inward, knees to chest. The whisper hissed louder now, coiling through every breath. Just once. I rocked faster. Do not taste it. I slammed my fists against the floor. Skin tore. Blood smeared across gray grit like rust spilled on sand. I grabbed the calendar pulp, pressed it to my chest like a shield. For a breath, it pulsed slower, as if soothed by the pressure. I whispered again, voice cracking. Do not taste it. Do not taste it. The air shuddered. The paste bulged harder against the towel's weave. The handle twitched. My eyes locked on it. My mouth watered harder than ever before, thick saliva pooling at my chin. My fingers twitched toward the edge. Just once. The whisper slithered deeper. I clawed at my cheeks until skin flaked like dry leaves. I bit my wrist until blood welled. The copper tang exploded across my tongue. I froze. The paste twitched again. My breath stalled. I pressed the calendar pulp against my chest until the edges tore apart. The paper dissolved into paste under my fingers. I screamed in my skull. Do not taste the black dust. My voice broke. My throat rasped raw. The paste surged. It forced itself through the towel's weave like muscle pushing from bone. The handle quivered with hunger. I dove at it with my fist. Pain exploded up my arm as skin split open. Blood smeared across gray grit, dark veins spreading outward like roots searching for life. For a breath, it stopped. The air hung still, suffocating, as if holding its breath with me. Then the paste bulged again. Just once. The whisper hissed like teeth scraping metal. I clutched the calendar pulp against my chest until it tore away. Shreds stuck to my skin like webs. The paste lunged toward the exposed patches. I screamed aloud. Do not taste it. Do not taste it. Do not. The words fell apart in my mouth. I collapsed onto the floor. The paste pulsed harder. The handle twitched again, quivering toward me like a living mouth. I pressed my fist to my ears, but the whisper crawled between my fingers. Just once. The hunger waited. The rule shattered, and still I clung to it. The handle still twitched when I crawled to it the next time. Not like before. Slower. Weaker. But alive. The towel sagged against it, slick with dark paste that pulsed beneath like something breathing. Its edges oozed toward warmth with patient insistence. I touched it once. The grit clung to my fingertip like wet ash. Cold. Hungry. I yanked back so fast I slammed my elbow against the counter. Pain bloomed hot, then sharp. My hand shook. My stomach twisted harder than before, claws digging deep enough to leave bruises along the inside of my ribs. I gasped, breath catching like grit dragged through muscle. I pressed my lips together until the edges split again. Blood welled. I wiped it with the back of my hand. The copper tang coated my tongue. The fridge's hum had returned, low and uneven. Every vibration seemed to travel through the paste into the handle, making it pulse in rhythm with the appliance's heartbeat. The air in the kitchen felt thick, stale, crawling along my skin like dry fingers. I scrubbed at my forearm until the dust flaked, but even as it fell, it seemed to creep back, sliding along hair follicles as if it had roots searching for warmth. The rule screamed inside me. Do not taste it. Do not taste it. I pressed my palm flat against the wall beside the handle. The texture rasped beneath the surface like sand trapped in plaster. I flinched. The paste twitched again. I yanked my hand away. The silence after hurt worse than the rasp. My ears rang with the absence, as if the whole room was holding its breath and waiting for me to fail. I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, head bowed until it rested against my thighs. The calendar pulp, flattened into strips and stuck to the floor like dead leaves, lay around me. I touched one with my fingertips. It crumbled beneath my touch. The words, "The last rule / do not taste the black dust," had blurred into pale smears that bled outward like scars. I traced the edges until it tore away. My fingers twitched. I bit my thumbnail until it split. The copper taste flooded again. I gagged, spitting until my mouth burned. My eyes darted to the sink. A smear of paste clung to the rim, darker now, thicker. It pulsed toward the edge as if waiting for breath to catch and slacken. I closed my eyes, rocking, whispering to myself, "Do not taste it. Do not taste it." The whisper answered from the corners of the room. Just once. It didn't sound like a word, more like breath dragging over bone or dry fingers scratching glass. It twisted around my skull until I could feel it crawling beneath my skin. My muscles spasmed. I pressed both hands over my ears. The rasp crawled between my fingers. I screamed inside my head, "Do not taste the black dust." The paste quivered. The air thickened. The silence stretched until it felt like it would crack. I collapsed forward, pressing my forehead against the floor. The grit scraped against skin like needles. I clawed at the floor with my nails, leaving crescent marks. I dug until skin peeled, until blood welled and darkened the gray paste into red veins. For a moment, the paste recoiled. I froze. Then it surged again. The hunger pushed toward me. Just once. The voice hissed. I slammed my fists into the floor, leaving splashes of blood that spread like roots seeking veins. My muscles spasmed from the force, jerking me upright. I spat onto the floor, watching the dark glob slide toward the paste like it was thirsty. My mouth flooded again. The urge screamed from the inside like fire ripping through muscle. I scrambled to my knees and clawed at my cheeks until skin tore open. Blood ran along my jaw like streams of iron. The taste hit me before I could stop it. Copper bitter thick. I gagged, choking on it, eyes watering. The paste on the handle twitched faster. It bulged through the towels, seemed like muscle flexing, fingers curling toward me. I collapsed backward. The counter's edge cut into my shoulder. Pain flared. I sobbed without sound, eyes wide, hands trembling. "Do not taste it. Do not taste it." The pace slowed for a breath. I clung to it, whispering the rule again and again until my jaw locked. Then the urge twisted tighter, wrapping around my chest like a clawed hand. Just once. It dragged me forward with the weight of iron chains. I bit the skin between my fingers again until it split open. I could taste blood on my tongue. I gagged, choking on the metallic tang. The fridge handle quivered, bulging harder beneath the towel like a living thing trying to push through. The room tilted. I pressed my palms against the floor, forcing myself to stay upright, breath shallow, heart racing. "Do not taste it. Do not taste it." The paste pulsed, searching for warmth. The silence stretched like skin pulled taut. The hunger waited. And I clung to the rule, frayed but still alive, as the darkness around me pressed closer. The handle twitched again before dawn. I sat frozen on the floor, knees drawn tight against my chest, forehead pressed into the damp cracks between tiles. My breath rasped against grit. Every inhale felt like pulling ash through torn lungs. The paste bulged beneath the towel like a muscle trapped under skin, its dark veins sliding slowly toward warmth. I could taste it on my tongue, even with my mouth clenched. "Do not taste it." The words rasped like dried leaves, barely holding shape. Just once. The whisper crawled along the edge of my mind like ants burrowing beneath the skin. It promised relief, sweet, silken, soft against raw flesh. I bit my wrist until skin split open. Blood welled and slid down my arm, dark and sticky. I gagged. The copper taste filled my mouth, thick and metallic. The paste pulsed harder. The towel sagged toward the handle, bulging like muscle stretching to escape. My eyes locked on it. I clawed at my cheeks until skin flaked away. Blood streamed into my mouth, bitter and hot. I spat, but the paste twitched toward it like a tongue tasting prey. "Do not taste it." I slammed my fists against the floor, skin splitting again. The sting pulsed up my arms, sharp and immediate, but the paste's hunger barely slowed. "Just once." The whisper whispered again, softer now, more seductive. My limbs shook uncontrollably. My jaw ground against itself until the pain exploded behind my ears. I staggered upright. The handle's bulge quivered faster now, dark veins racing beneath the fabric like fingers probing for warmth. The towel's edge peeled away, curling like lips parting. I gagged again, dry retching scraping the back of my throat raw. The room seemed to close in. The refrigerator's hum warped into a growl. Dust curled from the edges of the tile cracks toward me like crawling hair. I backed toward the wall. My chest heaved. Do not taste it. I pressed my palms against the cold tiles, fingers spread like claws, but the dust crawled between them, sliding along veins like dry tendrils seeking a path. The urge tore at me from inside like hooks digging through muscle. I rocked faster, eyes wide, lips parted. The paste pulsed harder, slithering against the towel's weave like something alive. I could feel it reaching. I grabbed the calendar's last strip from the floor. Its edges curled like dead skin. The words were gone, blurred into pale smears, but I traced them anyway with shaking fingers. The last rule: do not taste the black dust. The ink had dissolved into pulp, but I pressed it to my chest like armor, as if memory could hold shape even as paper crumbled. I crumbled with it. My knees buckled. I collapsed onto the floor. The refrigerator handle pulsed against the towel like a living wound seeking warmth. The paste oozed through the fabric's weave, bulging toward me. I reached for it without thinking. The urge flared, white-hot, overwhelming. Just once. My hand hovered inches from the seam. My breath stalled. My eyes widened. Do not taste it. I clawed at my face, ripping skin until blood welled freely. The copper tang flooded my mouth. I gagged, spitting until my throat burned raw. The paste surged again. The towel's edge peeled, curling like lips parting to bite. I screamed aloud. The sound tore from my chest like metal being ripped apart. The paste quivered. The refrigerator's hum warped into a pulse that beat against the edges of my hearing. The dust in the cracks stirred. I pressed my fists into my ears, but the whisper crawled between my fingers. Just once. I slammed both fists against the floor until skin burst open and blood spread like roots searching for veins. For a breath, the paste froze, bulging but unmoving, as if the sound stunned it. Then it surged harder. The towel stretched until the paste bulged beneath like something pressing from the inside. My muscles spasmed. My body jerked forward. I clawed at the floor's cracks, leaving gouges and crescents of skin. I bit the inside of my mouth until it split open. The copper tang flooded my tongue. I gagged until nothing but bile burned my throat. The paste quivered toward me, pushing through the towel's seam with slow, relentless hunger. My vision blurred. The walls bent inward. The dust curled like fingers reaching. I whispered the rule one last time. Do not taste it. The whisper answered. Just once. The room tilted. The paste lunged. And I clung to the words until every fiber of my being screamed for relief. The battle wasn't over. But I still fought. The towel tore. It didn't rip all at once, not like cloth gives way in a clean tear. It stretched, strained, softened, as if dissolving under pressure, until one thin seam parted. The paste surged through the gap like a tongue tasting air, thick, glossy, hungry. I froze. The fridge handle bulged toward me, dark veins racing through the paste, curling at the edges like fingers reaching for warmth. I could smell it, metallic, sour, sweet with rot. It crawled up my nostrils like smoke, coating the inside of my throat. My mouth flooded with saliva so fast it spilled down my chin. I pressed my lips shut, but it forced its way between them, slick and hungry. Do not taste it. I rasped the words against my teeth. The whisper slid along the edges of my mind, soft now, beckoning. Just once. My muscles spasmed. My jaw clenched harder than ever before, until pain shot from my temples down to my neck. I ground my teeth until I tasted blood. I gagged. The paste bulged farther, licking at the towels seemed like lips parting to bite. I slammed my fist against the counter's edge. Skin split open. Blood welled dark and thick, mingling with grit until it looked like rust smeared across ash. For a breath, the paste quivered but didn't advance. I seized the moment. Do not taste it. I barked it louder, desperate to drown the whisper. The paste stilled, only for a moment. Then it surged again. The towel ripped fully. The paste spilled through in slow, deliberate waves, thick tendrils exploring space as if feeling for softness. It curved toward me. I scrambled backward, but my knees buckled. The room spun. My fingers clawed the tiles until skin flaked like dry bark. The dust crawled along my arms, through hair, into the folds of torn skin like roots seeking a path. I slammed my palms against the floor, pushing away, but the grit clung tighter, sinking into sweat and blood. The refrigerator's hum warped into something deeper, like breathing. I gasped. The urge tore at me again. Just once. The whisper coiled around the edges of my brain like smoke curling into cracks. I bit my lips until they split open. Blood welled along the corners of my mouth. The copper tang flooded my tongue. I gagged, retching dry air until my throat rasped raw. The paste rippled toward me like muscle flexing. It pulsed faster. The towel lay shredded, limp at its edges, barely holding shape beneath the advancing tide. I could see it now, veins of paste racing toward warmth, fingers curling at the edges, slick tendrils brushing the air like hair against skin. "Do not taste it," I whispered again. My breath hitched. The whisper hissed back. Just once. It sounded like teeth scraping bone. It sounded like fingers reaching into flesh. It sounded like hunger. My muscles seized. My limbs jerked against my will. My chest tightened as if iron bands crushed it from within. I slammed my fist against the floor, leaving crescent scars across the tile. Pain exploded up my arm like fire. The paste twitched, bulging faster. It licked at the air, exploring. I shut my eyes. The room dissolved into a gray blur. The sound of breathing wrapped around me like chains. My tongue twitched at the roof of my mouth, searching for warmth, for softness. I slapped my hand over it. I screamed inside. "Do not taste it." The words cracked like thunder. The paste froze for a breath, bulging but still, as if stunned by sound. I pressed both hands against the floor, fingers spread, nails digging in, trying to hold myself upright. The towel's remnants hung limp at the edge of the handle. The paste slid along the crack, curling like smoke. My head spun. The air thickened. My breath rasped like dry leaves dragged across bone. The whisper returned. Just once. It crawled through my skin, curling into muscle and bone. I shivered. My skin broke out in gooseflesh, like seeds sprouting under dirt. I clawed at my arms, ripping skin until blood welled and slid down like iron streams. The copper tang flooded again. I gagged until bile burned. The paste surged toward me. It bulged through the seam, curling at the edge like lips parting to bite. My hands trembled. My muscles spasmed. The urge flared white-hot, tearing through muscle like hooks digging deeper. "Do not taste it," I screamed at myself. My voice cracked. The paste pulsed faster. Its dark veins twitched like searching fingers. The towel fell fully aside, limp and useless. The paste oozed forward, deliberate and patient, exploring every air pocket. It reached toward me. I could feel its breath against my skin. I pressed my fists against my temples, nails clawing at bone. Pain exploded. The world narrowed. The refrigerator's hum became a growl. The dust curled like fingers wrapping around my ankles. My eyes watered. My chest heaved. "Do not taste it. Do not taste it." The whisper hissed. Just once. It whispered again, soft, seductive, patient. The hunger reached closer. The towel lay dead at the handle's edge. The paste quivered like living muscle, searching, pulsing. The battle wasn't over. It never would be. And still, I clung to the rule until my fingers bled and my breath rasped into silence. It touched me. Not with fingers, not with teeth, but with cold, wet certainty. A tendril of paste slid from the towel's edge and curled around my wrist. Slow, deliberate. Testing. I froze. The urge exploded inside me. Just once. The whisper burrowed beneath skin, into muscle, into bone. My mouth flooded. Saliva spilled down my chin, thick and sticky. I pressed my lips shut, but it seeped between them like smoke-seeking cracks. The paste's tip explored my wrist's tear. It traced blood-wet skin with a slow, deliberate tongue. I gagged. The copper tang exploded. My throat rasped raw. "Do not taste it," I screamed without sound. But the words crumbled inside me. The paste's tendril tightened. It pulsed against the skin like a muscle flexing, curling, searching for warmth. My arm jerked forward. I tried to pull back. Pain seared through muscle, as if it wanted to burrow deeper. I slammed my fist against the floor. Skin split. Blood welled. The paste twitched, more eager now. It explored the blood like roots. I could feel its wet hunger sliding deeper. I clawed at my arm, scraping skin until blood ran thick and dark. The copper taste flooded my tongue again. I gagged, dry heaving until nothing but bile burned. The room tilted. The refrigerator's hum warped into a growl. Dust crawled from the cracks like hair, eager and slow. The towel lay shredded at the handle's edge, limp and useless. The paste thickened, bulging toward me like muscle straining to escape its sheath. Just once it whispered again, softer now, closer than breath. My muscles spasmed uncontrollably. My legs buckled. I collapsed. The tendril slid farther along my wrist, curling around until it brushed raw flesh. A shock ran through me. The urge tore like fire through muscle. I clawed at the tendril with both hands. It slithered like wet silk beneath my nails. I screamed inside. Do not taste it. My voice broke. The paste's tip quivered. It pressed harder, curling like fingers searching for softness. I bit my wrist. Skin tore. Blood welled bright and hot. The paste's tip twitched, eager. I gagged, retching until my throat rasped raw. I forced my hands against the floor, nails digging into grit. The dust crawled between them like living roots. My breath hitched. The whisper laughed. Just once. I slammed my fists against the tiles again and again until skin flaked and blood mixed with grit. The paste paused. For one breath, it recoiled. Then it surged. The tendril twisted like muscle hunting warmth. It brushed my skin again, slower this time, curling like a snake wrapping itself tighter. I rocked back. My eyes widened. I clawed at my cheeks until skin tore away. Blood streamed like iron. I gagged, choking on blood and grit. The paste lunged. It split into smaller tendrils, curling toward the gap between my wrist and forearm. I screamed. Do not taste it. My jaw clenched until teeth ground bone. Pain exploded. The urge flared white-hot. The paste's tendrils quivered faster, racing toward my pulse. I scrambled backward, but my legs trembled like wire under static. I collapsed again. The refrigerator's hum twisted deeper. Dust curled from cracks like claws. The whisper returned, urgent, almost pleading. Just once. I clawed at the floor until skin peeled away. Blood welled thick. The paste twitched, racing toward warmth like veins searching for life. I bit my tongue until it split. Copper flooded. I gagged, retching until bile scalded my throat. The paste lunged. The tendrils split again, curling like hair across raw skin. I screamed aloud. Do not taste it. The words cracked like bone. The paste's tendrils froze for a breath. Then surged harder. They wrapped tighter, curling like fingers probing flesh. The towel lay shredded, limp at the fridge handle's edge. The paste spilled across it like muscle writhing to escape confinement. I pressed my palms flat against the floor, spreading my fingers wide like claws. The grit crawled between them, seeking cracks. I clawed again until skin split. Blood ran like rust through ash. The paste surged toward the trail, its tendrils racing along my wounds like roots. My chest heaved. My breath rasped like sand dragged through bone. The whisper curled closer. Just once. It licked the inside of my skull like smoke curling into cracks. My muscles seized. My limbs jerked against me. The paste explored my wrist again, slow and deliberate. I clawed at it with both hands, but it wriggled like silk slipping through my fingers. I screamed. Do not taste it. The words cracked. Pain tore through my muscles. The paste's tendrils twisted faster, racing toward my pulse. My jaw ground against itself until sparks burst behind my eyes. Blood flooded my tongue. The copper tang thickened. I gagged until bile burned. The paste surged again. The towel's shredded edge barely held its place. The paste oozed like muscle, searching for warmth. The refrigerator's hum groaned like breath against bone. Dust crawled from cracks like pale claws. The whisper's breath curled around my skull. Just once. The paste lunged. The room tilted. The urge tore through me like hooks ripping muscle. I clung to the rule until my fingers bled, until my breath rasped into silence. But I could feel it. It had touched me. It would not stop. The paste's tendrils coiled tighter. The towel fell away. The last line between warmth and hunger dissolved. The battle ended, and I still fought.